because I got the echo.
I did.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone to season 2 of Truth Hour, and we appreciate everyone for joining us on this journey in this season. Apologies for the technical difficulties on my account. For some reason, Shonda couldn't add me to join the live, so now we're on her page, and that works. It's all the same. A camera is a camera.
Yes.
But thank you all for joining us. We're going to start off with something outside of pop. Well, first I'll give you a quick rundown of what we're going to cover. So we're going to talk about the Capitol insurrection. Again, putting some respect on Stacey Abrams' name as she led the charge for the election of both Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossof in Georgia in those Senate runoffs, and the potential impeachment of the current occupant of the White House, Donald Trump. And it looks like there's some Republicans saying that they're going to possibly sign their names on that impeachment document. So that's a quick rundown. But before we get there, can I just say, roll Tide, roll.
You're by yourself.
Nick Saban, head coach of the University of Alabama Crimson Tide, cemented what was already a pretty cemented legacy as the GOAT college football coach. He is without a doubt the greatest college football coach of all time. He didn't need that 7th championship last night, but if there was ever any doubt on who the greatest college football coach of all time was, Nick Saban last night put any doubt to rest, because Alabama absolutely annihilated the Ohio State Buckeyes. And if Shannon's out there watching, I said the Ohio State, but it don't make their football team any better. They still got waxed. Sorry to say. Actually, I'm not sorry to say, because I'm a fan of the SEC, the best conference in college football, and it's been the best conference in college football since I've been alive. It's the most competitive. They have the best athletes. They have the best coaching. They have the most resources, so naturally they can do the best recruiting. It's all around always been the superior athletic conference in college football. And so, yeah, I mean,
you just went so hard for Alabama as if you were a diehard fan. So I'm
a Tennessee fan.
So I need you to bring that down a bit, because
but Tennessee plays in the SEC.
They do, and Auburn plays in the SEC. You don't see me getting that excited for Alabama's win.
Well, who was the first BCS national champion? I believe it was the Tennessee Volunteers. It wasn't Auburn.
Cliff, do we want to talk about the last time that Tennessee has been to the national championship? Yeah, exactly. But the point I'm making is you're going real hard for them. Let's just hope that Tennessee has a better season next year. Let's hope that Auburn has a better season next year. We don't need to talk about Alabama anymore. So I'm with the crowd here. We can go to the next one. And they said a Tennessee rival. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, rivals. You can't really be a rival if you're not winning anything. It's like calling the Clippers and the Lakers rivals. The Clippers have never really won anything meaningful against them, so we can't really consider them a rival. But I think it was worth acknowledging. I mean, it shows my objectivity because I'm a Tennessee fan, not an Alabama fan. One quick note about rules. The kid that got thrown out of the game in the second quarter, I mean, I'm sorry, it's not football anymore. It was a brilliant play from the safety. He dislodged the receiver from the football. There was nothing malicious about the contact. Sure, his helmet engaged, came in contact with the potential ball carrier. I mean, that's what you're taught. And if that play is illegal, if they're going to outlaw that play, then they might have to just ban the whole sport. To me, that was the kid shouldn't have been thrown out of a national championship for what seemed like a pretty clean play. He turned to the side. It was mostly shoulder, hit the kid in the top of the chest. It was a great play. But
you have some comments in here.
Dude had a concussion.
I don't think people are excited.
People get concussions. I mean, if you play football long enough, you're gonna have a concussion. And don't hit me with the bro. We don't care. It was bang. I thought it was a close play. He didn't lead with the crown of his helmet. He led with his shoulder, and the helmet came in contact. But I'll leave that there. People about to get upset. I think it was a bad call.
Yeah.
I also think in the semifinal game, Skolky, when that kid got thrown out of that football game from Clemson, I don't think he should have been ejected from the game because there was nothing malicious or illegal about the hit.
Well, just judging by the comments, I think it's safe that we can move on. Before we get into that, I just want to say, well, Cliff and I would just like to say thank you to everyone who came back in the new year. You guys have always been so graceful because we had a few issues earlier today, but we will do better into the new year. And again, always feel free to drop comments, ask questions. We will try to start at the top of the hour with non-political topics. So we'll try to add some things in there and then also end the show with something a little bit lighter. But I'll let you go from there, Cliff.
All right. I'm just going to the images. So January 6th was a day that is not one that will be forgotten. And it's a day that we saw really for the first time the President of the United States incite a mob to attempt a coup. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on what were you thinking on the day? I know it's weird. We planned this like in the discussion of like on the rundown. It's like, but it's still kind of just so disgusted with what we saw. The idea that a president would incite a white supremacist mob of terrorists to besiege the Capitol is like, just to say that statement out loud and for that statement to be factual kind of takes you aback. Like, this really happened, but it did happen. And now it's time to discuss what are the next steps.
Right. So it's not only, I'll get to like what were my thoughts, but it's not only it did happen, it's still happening. I mean, the inauguration's next week, and the bottom line is Trump has no plans to really put a stop to what he's incited, what he's created. And it's not just in this moment. It's this has been going for long. Before I said, oh, well, the last 5 years, just taking into consideration his run for president. But if you think about it, him starting the whole birther movement with President Obama, it's just all of these things have allowed him to embolden his base. And what was frustrating last week is, so most of us, we were at work, or I guess, well, you were still, it was still early on the West Coast, but most people, you're already at work. It's early afternoon. And so some of my friends, they had messaged me and they were saying, are you, they were texting and they were asking, was I watching, what was taking place during the debates as they were planning to hold a vote to solidify the election results. And I said, no, I have no reason to watch. I couldn't do it because I wanted to stay in a moment of celebration for Georgia. Like, there was so much to be said of the work that people put in to flip the Senate. And I just felt, you know what, let's stay in this moment, because it seems at every turn they've been able to hijack this moment, like for you to be able to celebrate. And so initially I said, no, I'm not going to look at it. But then my friend had told me, I think that they're saying that there might be a breach at the Capitol. And so automatically I then had to shift, what I thought was, okay, no, I just want to stay in celebratory mode. And then I started texting friends, my old coworkers, people that I knew that worked there, because that's real. The fact that people are there, they're defenseless, and then you have to rely on the security, at the Capitol, which should be Capitol Police, is very scary. And again, knowing that you can't be armed, in fact, that places another form of vulnerability. And so it was just, was I surprised? No. Should that have happened? Absolutely not. And I think the unfortunate part in all of this is that no one wants to take responsibility in terms of what happens, in terms of what happens next. And to see Republicans now trying to condemn his actions, if they are trying to condemn his actions or his words, that bothers me, because they're actually culpable in all of this. So, yeah. And then the last thing I'll add, and I'll let you go, Cliff, is what's a bit frustrating is that now in the last 24 hours, they've started to show the clip of the president and then representative from Alabama, Mo Brooks. They've been showing the rhetoric that they had at the rally that actually encouraged the insurrection. And so for me, I almost feel as if they should have been showing this early on and not just the images of what was taking place last Wednesday. But I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, to your point, it's not surprising, because when there is consistent messaging and propaganda to influence people that a free and fair election was either stolen or was somehow inherently fraudulent, by the nature of our two-party system, that means you are now persuading and influencing half the electorate, right, in two-party system. And of course, what took place January 6th shouldn't be surprising, because half of the electorate was complicit and fully supported the caging of children. Half of the electorate was fully supportive and complicit and fine with QAnon. Half of the electorate was supportive and fine with the implementation of a Muslim ban. And so if half of
within the first week of him taking office, I just want to point that out with the Muslim ban. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you have all of these atrocities and just vile, reaching out to the most vile, evil elements of our nature. That's who's occupying the White House. These white supremacist sympathies, that's who's occupying the White House. So if you think about the propaganda that was necessary to drum up sufficient fear and anger, of course, the mob mentality, of course, the actions of those insurrectionists shouldn't surprise us, because we've seen them start to become more and more willing to go from the shadows to wearing their Klan hoods out in public. And that is a problem. And I wrote this on social media, and people may be upset. That's a problem of white people not owning their shit and calling people out on this stuff. Because
I agree.
Can't have members of the oppressed groups being responsible for ending their oppression. And if these supremacist groups, and the reason I use that term unflinchingly is because the imagery, they wore shirts that told us how they feel, right, about marginalized communities. I saw 6 million was not enough. And I had to kind of hold back tears, because I learned that all the coverage I watched, I don't know how I missed this. My kids told me, when I say my kids, my students told me about this. And I saw the image, they put the link in the chat on Zoom, and I saw it, and it's like, you kind of have to fight. It's like, it's insane to me that these individuals would conflate American patriotism with this neo-Nazism. Then you have people who say, well, that's not who we are. That's BS. We're better than that. That's BS, because we're not better than what we do. We don't deserve better than what we elicit. It's been our political machinery that's allowed this type of degradation of regard for human life to perpetuate. And that's the reason you get it January 6, 2021. Because of the persistent and consistent evil propaganda that's brainwashed these people who truly and genuinely believe that an election was stolen. And now you're going to have the Biden administration playing 4 years of make-believe healing. And I think what we can construe as a successful administration for Biden is his ability to bring people together, whatever the hell that means, considering 75 million people, again, were fine with re-electing a Klansman into the White House. So I don't know what your view of success for a Biden administration is. That to me is what it is.
Yeah. I just want to add to one thing you said in terms of him being able to bring people together. I know we'll get into impeachment, but the only way for him to do that, honestly, I guess what's frustrating about this, yes, I will say it later. I do believe that the president should be impeached because there will be so many, though this will have lasting ramifications in terms of what happens for the country going forward. And if we're all thinking about what we want for ourselves and the country, and we're saying that this is not a representation of ourselves, then you show that by impeaching him. Will Republicans do that and get on board? Highly unlikely. Which is it's because the reason why I say highly unlikely is because right after everything took place last Wednesday, what did we see them do? There were still people that voted against certifying the election results. So that's what I'm saying in terms of like taking responsibility, and honestly, it's throwing a bone to the Republican Party if you think about it. Help you rid this disease from your party. But the main thing is for so long, like you said, they've been in the shadows, and now you know how people feel, which I'd rather know that than to just make the assumption that or we're just walking among people and assuming that this isn't the worst of us. There's a lot of work to be done, and I know we'll talk about what the future of what he will be able to do and accomplish. I know we'll get to that. Maybe not today, but next week.
So I'm going to read a quote from Congresswoman Liz Cheney of Wyoming. And Liz Cheney is the House Republican Conference Chair, which means she serves as the third highest ranking member of Republican House leadership. And Liz Cheney said, "Today, there has never been a greater betrayal by a president of the United States of his office and his oath to the Constitution. The president of the United States summoned this mob, assembled this mob, and lit the flame of this attack. Everything that followed was his doing. None of this would have happened without the president. I will vote to impeach the president." And so I think what we've been needing all of this time, right? What we've needed was Republican establishment like Liz Cheney to make this type of forceful statement, because we've not heard this from Jim Jordan. We've not heard this from Lindsey Graham.
We've
not
heard
this from Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, I was just saying he still has the same tune.
Yeah. And so to have a member of House leadership on the Republican side make this type of definitive, declarative statement, impugning, right? Repudiating the incitement to insurrection of the president, to me, means that there's a potential, I'll say a potential, small potential for Republicans to do the right thing here. And I know I'm going out of order, but I think this is a good position to talk about impeachment. I I'm curious. So when you learned that Nancy Pelosi and House leadership were considering drafting for the second time of his presidency articles of impeachment, what were your initial thoughts?
So initial thoughts, I just threw my hands up because part of me felt as if, once again, here we're taking up he will then take up so much space. I'm tired. Like I'm just like, good riddance with this man. And yeah, I've just had enough. I've had enough of him. And so part of me was just thinking about the process. Again, the back and forth now with the Senate, because they feel a little bit differently on the timeline for impeachment. Mm-hmm. I was right in that thought, because that's exactly what's happening. But then after sitting with it, I thought, you know what? They have to do something. You have to set a precedent. And we don't need the last time people remembered that someone was impeached was because of honestly, I think most people, when they think about impeachment, they're thinking about Bill Clinton and the wrongdoings of how he mishandled things with one of his staffers, right? So I think that it's like, we need to show like, these are the rules. This is how you follow the rules and you implement them. Because for some reason, the Republicans or people that choose to follow that agenda, I don't know. I don't even know if I want to call them Republicans, the Trump supporters. But the point is that for some reason, they feel as if they are not beholden to the same rules as everyone else. Because if in fact you call yourself a patriot, you would not have did anything like that, because you actually care about our systems and protecting democracy. Mm-hmm. What about you? What were your initial thoughts?
So if I'm being completely honest, my first thoughts were, this is an unnecessary strain on U.S. tax dollars, and it's not going to result in a removal. They ought to devote their energy to meaningful legislation. But then I read a quote from Bernie Sanders. And it gave me a whole new perspective. And I think he's absolutely right, which for anyone who's been following the show knows that I am not always on the same side as one Mr. Bernie Sanders.
You should
but he was right
quote for them.
Do you have sure. Usually I don't, but I can have it in a second.
Oh, okay. But I will agree with you. I will agree with Cliff on that last thing. I'm not always on the same page as Bernie, but I too had the same.
He's right on this.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he's right on this. So
let me know.
Some people ask, so Bernie Sanders says, some people ask, why would you impeach and convict a president who has only a few days left in office? And Bernie says, precedent. It must be made clear that no president, now or in the future, can lead an insurrection against the U.S. government. Mm-hmm. And I read that and I thought, that's absolutely right. The problem with the current White House occupant is there's really never been a time in his presidency when he's been held accountable for criminal activity or corruption.
None.
But the incitement of an insurrection, to me, even goes beyond some of his other government corruption. And if the Congress's reaction to a president inciting an insurrection is nothing, what does that mean for future presidents? And to me, it is worth the strain on tax dollars. It is worth the time and energy that will be necessary to conduct another trial. And it's worth it because if he's removed, he can never again serve as a public official. And so he can never put the country through this endless trauma that we've endured the past 4 years. And so for that reason, I went from this is a waste of money and time and it's going to result in nothing to, even if there's not a removal, it sends enough of a message to future presidential candidates and presidents that you cannot violate this public trust by inciting people to mob violence and treason without consequence. And so, no, I fully support the impeachment, and I think that Republicans more than Liz Cheney need to get on board.
Oh,
is it
absolutely.
Country or is it Trump? Is it country or is it party? Is it country or is it you getting reelected? And that's the question that needs to be answered.
Right. And how exactly? And then what is your view of the country? What does that look like going forward, right? Because if they don't impeach him, I also saw there were some other messages that have went out where they were actually explaining what would happen if in fact he's impeached. And so one person, I think it might have been AOC had posted it, or it could have been like one of the other another organization, but they were just stating simply, this means no lifetime pension for him. In terms of taxpayers, our money goes to their security details, they receive a pension. And so, when you start breaking those things down for people, I think they start to feel a little bit differently in terms of, well, is he really worthy? Does he deserve this? Because again, like you said, he hasn't been held accountable for anything under his administration. Nothing. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm sure that the House will move forward. He will be impeached, and then I don't know what happens from here, because, like you said, now it will consume a lot of the rhetoric in terms of the first 100 days and the policies that will be one day.
And one quick thing to explain to folks in terms of a timeline, because people have probably heard and it's like, well, wait a minute, they're not going to conduct a trial until January 20th. Why is that? Well, the reason for that is, one, our senators get pretty extensive vacation and they're not in session. And so the only way that we will see a trial conducted before Inauguration Day is if there is a unanimous consent decree, right? Unanimously agreed upon by all 100 senators, right? And this is kind of a throwback to the Articles of Confederation, which failed, and is kind of dumb to me. But the House can send articles of impeachment. To me, outside of like declaring war, right, and talking about treaties, and it's like, this is one of their most important functions. And yet that function cannot be carried out without the approval of a process conducted by the other chamber in the same branch of government. And that other chamber can decide unilaterally that they are going to just postpone this vital function of government. And so for folks who are unclear, without that unanimous consent decree, the Senate will not reconvene until they're back in session, which is January 19th. And the earliest they would conduct the trial would be January 20th. And as we know, January 20th happens also to be Inauguration Day. We will, barring any crazy new news with these insurrectionists, we will have a new president on January 20th. And the question becomes, do we want a new president to inherit this looming impeachment trial, or would we prefer to have a new president hit the ground running with COVID relief and other pieces of vital legislation that would allow them to be considered more productive? And that's a question I like to hear from you guys in the, we got a long, can you read that one? That comment. If they don't remove him.
Okay, got it. Okay, yeah. If they don't remove him, the impeachment process is pointless because the message will be portrayed as it doesn't matter what you do, you will not get impeached.
Yeah, I read, I think it was Robert Reich, the former labor secretary, and he said, if the Constitution, if the framers of the Constitution, and I'm having obviously to paraphrase because I don't have this memorized, but if the framers of the Constitution did not intend for Congress to utilize their impeachment authority to remove a president that incites an attempted coup to overthrow their own government, then it's unclear what the framers intended for the impeachment authority to be utilized for. And so I think that's poignant, because what the heck is the impeachment authority for if not for this? We've never seen anything this extreme. I try to oftentimes make a comparable reference so that people can understand. It's like, you know what, this is kind of somewhat similar in pattern or in nature. There's really nothing equivalent to a president inciting a violent mob attempting to overthrow the government, right? Like, not in our country, maybe in some countries below the equator, right? But we've not seen that here. So if they don't utilize this authority now, I don't know if in our lifetimes we'll ever see a president impeached for anything. I'm not sure if you see this question in the chat. Do you believe? I guess I have a quick answer. Do you believe Biden will be the president? Do you believe Biden will be the president? Well, yes. I mean, the Electoral College. He had over 7 million more votes than Donald Trump. He won the Electoral College by over 70 votes, and the Electoral College vote was certified at 4 a.m. on January 7th, 2021.
Right. And the only thing, I don't know if this question is maybe geared towards something we were talking about, the transfer on January 20th. I would like to acknowledge that they can do this inside of the Capitol building before, if needed, they go outside. Or they can always move locations. It's just been traditionally, it has taken place on the back side of, I believe, that's technically the backside of the Capitol. But historically, it actually used to take place on the front. So again, these things are movable. It's just something that I guess the people, we've wanted to also be witnesses. We wanted to be part of it, but I'm sure if it comes down to security reasons, they'll have to make concessions. So yeah, but I'm in agreement. He will be the next president.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because I didn't know that. I actually thought they all took place on the mall. So to know they took place in the front of the White House.
Hold on. No.
Yeah.
No. Hold on. The inauguration, it takes place at the Capitol. It just spans over the National Mall. When you see all of those people, they're just lined up. They're just standing up across the National Mall.
I thought they set up that special stage at the mall. I mean, some of us didn't work on Capitol Hill. See, now Shonda's flexing. We know you worked on Capitol Hill and you got to be present for all of these ceremonies. I'm just a little guy that was in the class.
That's not what it is. Guarantee if you go and I just want you to look this up tonight. If you were to look, if you were to go to the computer, I'm just saying, like, those images of what, unfortunately, if you look at the insurrection, if you look at those images, it's the same building of the steps where they performed the inaugural ceremony.
So if I'm being honest, I didn't pay attention to inaugurals until Obama.
Okay. But that's fair, and that's why I think that you're talking about that's why I'm saying for the National Mall, yes, people are standing outside. Oh, okay. Anyways, I'm just
what they say.
No, because there's somebody in the comments. No, I'm trying to educate you guys on this. That's all.
I mean, it's okay. All of us ain't work on Capitol Hill. We know you've been to the last 3 inaugurals. It's fine.
Actually, no. I stayed in my office.
Not Trump's, but
yeah, I definitely did not. But
all right. So
moving on.
Also, what happened last week? Last week before I put up this, for folks on IG, I put up the Georgia Senate runoff banner. last week was kind of an emotional roller coaster because we learned on we learned Tuesday
evening
that Jacob Blake's killers, those cops, would not be held accountable despite shooting him in the back 7 times. Shooting. So we learned that Jacob Blake's killers are not going to be held legally responsible for killing this man. And then the next day we get this great result in Georgia. And then the day after, John Ossof and Raphael Warnock pull off those upset victories. We have.
Hold on. I just want to retract. So he did not die, but he was left paralyzed though.
Yes, I keep saying that. Apologies. Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, because I would have been eaten up in the comments. And then so we go from Jacob Blake, Georgia, Capitol insurrection, and it's like it's kind of hit from all sides, right? And so this is before we get there, I say for the next, I said this before the last 3 episodes, we're going to need to continue to put respect on Stacey Abrams' name, because she is the reason that Joe Biden won the state of Georgia, and Stacey Abrams, I imagine the future governor of Georgia, if not future Supreme Court Justice, Yale law grad Stacey Abrams will be is the reason that these 2 gentlemen are going to be in the U.S. Senate.
And I also want to mention someone else who some people, they know who she is, but she's also the founder or the CEO of the New Georgia Project, and they did a lot of work. And her name is Bernice Ufo. And she's well known. She's an activist, but she's well known among that, like the community. She's done a lot of work in terms of like mobilizing people. So just want to make sure we're giving everybody their respect and their flowers, because so much has been taken already.
That's fair. I was not so much surprised with Warnock's victory. I didn't think that the Georgia voters would reward Kelly Loeffler, because she was never elected to that office. She was just appointed by a governor that shouldn't have been in that office in the first place. But I didn't think they would reward her, considering she was pretty corrupt in the office in the way that she moved money after some insider trading corruption. And so I thought that the Georgia voters would punish her. The David Perdue loss did surprise me. And I don't know if you looked into the numbers and thought, you know what, these 2 are both going to win these seats. I did not see David Perdue losing his seat.
You know how I feel about these polls. Nothing has changed, okay? But to all my friends and everyone that was doing the work, I love y'all. I do, and I respect it. But if you came to me and you asked me about the polls, the numbers, I just, none of that sits well with me. So I'm just like, well, whoever's job that is, that's great. We're gonna keep doing the work. We're gonna make some calls. But yeah, but I agree. I didn't see the Ossof win. I was actually shocked, because I thought to myself, that's just a really big gift. That's a really big gift. Will we have that? No. Can't. I'm still at a loss, honestly, in terms of what this means. I'm at a loss, but I also feel as if let us not squander this moment and the power that they have. That's the other part. In terms of, there's a lot of good that can be done, and changes that can be made within the party. And I know that's giving them a lot. But I'm just saying, so just taking all that into consideration. You're shaking your head.
You're much more optimistic than me. I'm a realist, and I understand that Joe Manchin just won re-election 2 years ago, And Joe Manchin has already been very vocal in opposition to the things that Dems care about. He's not going to vote for Medicare for all expansion. He more than likely will not vote for a $15 minimum wage. He's not supportive of the District of Columbia receiving
When is
state.
he up for re-election? Oh, you said he just got reelected 2 years ago.
He just got reelected. Yeah, so he's going to be in there for Biden's entire term.
Oh.
He's not supportive of statehood for the territory of Puerto Rico. He's not supportive of Medicare for all. I think I might have said that, repeated that, but that's fine. It still happens to be true. He's not supportive of eliminating student loan debt. So of all the stuff that we thought we were going to get, he's not supportive of $2,000 stimulus checks.
Well, okay.
Joe Manchin of West Virginia is not supportive of any progressive policy that Joe Biden ran on. So this idea that, well, Georgia just threw the Senate to the Dems, not really, because it's a 50-50 tie, and you have Joe Manchin voting with the Republicans whenever he can.
But I also think we have to, again, settle expectations, because we know that you can't just, you're not going to be able to pass like the Green New Deal. I mean, that was clear just from Biden running. The man,
and that's fine.
I'm just saying,
minimum wage.
Yeah, but listen, the point I'm trying to make is, I know that these bills, they will be watered down. There will be things that will be stripped from them. It's not going to be the most progressive policies that are passed. The things that we might want, I know that there will have to be lots of hard compromises made in order for people because it's more than just, he's not the only one. I'm saying there will be others, I'm sure.
So why, to me, police reform ought not to be considered progressive. Police reform should be apolitical. But these are the types of policies that Joe Manchin is against in that wing of the party. And so we had this conversation back in November and then again in December before closing for the year. These Democrats either need to get on board with the party's platform, right, established at the convention, or carry on with another party.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you look at, I was going to say, but the thing is that they need to rid the party of the establishment. Because if you look at the policies that were adopted, they're not the most progressive. I'm just saying that were adopted this year at the convention. We don't have to get into all. I mean, it's more progressive in the past, but I'm just saying, like, in terms, you mentioned police reform or just criminal. I don't even know if we could say it's criminal justice reform, but to me, I feel like providing further oversight, that's not the solution. And unfortunately, we saw this summer they were not on the same page.
I'm going to come back to the Georgia runoffs. I have a question for you because you have some more insider information from DC. Do folks like in the know? Do folks on Capitol Hill think that Georgia can be kind of that Georgia is a model for Dems flipping other southern states?
So that's actually not a question for, I guess, like my friends at the Hill. That would more be on the campaigning side. And I do want to talk to some of them. But again, so bringing this up, right? Because for me, you said that I'm being more optimistic. That's the point I'm making, though, in terms of what happens going forward. This is going to require D-Trip, so DCCC, DSCC, the ones that control, they have the money, they raise money for Senate, like the Senate congressional campaigns, or also for congressional campaigns for Democrats. It will then require them and the DNC to actually begin to look for candidates like an Ossof or a Warnock, right? I mean, those are two pretty non-traditional candidates. They're not establishment, but that means that they then would have to make the decision early on that those are the candidates that they're looking for. And on top of that, they need to have some hard conversations with some of these members that have been sitting in these seats for over 20 years. It's time to go.
Yeah.
It's time to go. I mean, Yeah.
I would say Ossof is more traditional than Warnock. I mean, Reverend Warnock, I don't know if folks know this. Reverend Warnock is the pastor of the church that Dr. King led. John Ossof was an intern for John Lewis. So although we wouldn't consider him establishment because he's technically not been in national elected office, right? But he's still, I'd say that's establishment. You don't think so?
I think we'll see what happens, right? So after his first 2 years, or the first, like after I would say like maybe the first 2 years of him in office, when you start to see like what money is being poured into them, and the and then also too how they place themselves in different conversations. Will they be like a Cory Booker? Or are they just going to be one of those members that, they're there, but they're not as vocal? You know what I mean? Because I do think that once you gain maybe the national appeal and you're actually, or if you're willing to just speak up, right? Because there's some members, they're there and you're like, oh, did not know which state you represented, nor which city. But I think that kind of determines then like when somebody becomes establishment, because it's outside money and it's outside influences of the areas that they represent. And then who they align themselves with too. So if you are now only doing things with some of the members who've been there for a while and they're not really focused on hearing from the people, then you've now aligned yourself with the establishment and you're not helping further the goals of the people within your district or I guess like your constituency. You're now focused on what the establishment wants.
Interesting. So you're saying essentially, so your answer to the question, would you consider John Ossof establishment? Time will tell, because it's going to be determined by his legislative agenda and what he does in relationship to what the party elites do.
And then the thing is, because like when we say, can Georgia be the model? For me, the one I do want to acknowledge this before we get off of here. This is so significant for Georgia to be able to flip blue as a southern state, because we have not seen this in so long. It's been a while for Florida, and I'm just not even going to get into that whole thing with Florida. But for places like my beloved Texas, that every time I get so hopeful.
Texas is close now.
I know it's close. And so for me, again, this is what I'm saying in terms of the candidates that they can go and invest in. If you begin to, I think like what they just showed is what was maybe looked at as the unimaginable, they just made possible. And so I think that Georgia really has the opportunity to show like what shifts can be made and what they're willing to do to now protect the people within its, like, to set policies for people in its state, and for it to not seem as if it's just all socialism, because that's really what's been painted for so long when you're talking about some of the policies that Dems would like to actually implement in the South. So I think now we'll be able to see a shift in the narrative that's used.
Oh, that's interesting. Like this idea, like you don't want to vote for a Dem because they're going to come take your guns.
Right. It's guns. It's freedom of speech. It's freedom of religion. So all of those things.
Well, the speech argument is tough right now.
Yeah.
Because now you have conservatives saying that they're trying to silence us online with these social media companies determining that their hate speech is no longer appropriate on their platforms, and they're removing.
No, take it to the Supreme Court, because we need that's a Supreme Court thing, and we can talk about that. I'm just saying, because part of it, I think I will say it is long overdue. Is long overdue, right? But technology advances so fast, but what's not advanced fast are the way people have been writing these messages online. I mean, this has been here. The news feed has been there. The comment box has been there for years. So part of this is just a problem that is long overdue to have a solution.
Yeah. All right. Well, unless you wanted to ask your Ford Bronco question.
Oh, I forgot all about it. Oh man. Okay. So in the comments, can someone tell me what a Ford Bronco is? Do you know what a Ford Bronco is?
I promise you, everyone knows what a Ford Bronco is.
And without looking it up, because right now everybody's
don't look it up.
Yeah, you can't
without
leave
having
the
to
chat.
go to Yahoo or Google.
Yeah.
If someone said, "Oh," if somebody mentioned a Ford Bronco just in everyday speech with you, would you know what they were talking about? And could you actually visualize this vehicle?
Oh,
And
he
just
doesn't
while we're
count.
waiting.
He doesn't count.
Oh, did they already respond? Oh, here, I haven't seen. Oh, I missed all these comments. Okay, absolutely. Yeah. So while people are responding to the Ford Bronco question, this is sparked by Shonda and I talking on the phone. See, even on Facebook, it's an older, big SUV. Thank you. Shonda and I talking on the phone, and I said I was driving the other day, and I passed the new model of the Ford Bronco, and I said I'm not a big fan. I thought it was going to look different when I saw designs of it at a car show a little over a year ago. And Shonda says, "What's a Ford Bronco?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah,
what do you mean?
Look, guys, I was dead serious. I'm like, what? I was like, a Ford Bronco. And he's like, it's a truck, it's an SUV. It's so popular. And he's going on and on. I'm like, I don't know how popular because I have not seen one.
It's not that it's popular now. It's just that because of the OJ chase, it's kind of like a part of like kind of social lore. We're just familiar with it. It'd be like saying, you know what a Ford Mustang is. Like, yeah, I might not have ever driven one, but I know what the thing is. You didn't even know what a Bronco was.
Yeah, and then when I looked it up, I do know this. But I felt like I should have received a pass because I explained to him I did not grow up here in the States. Okay. And those were non-existent. So I'm sorry. I mean, yes, I'm familiar with the OJ chase, but yeah.
I know we got to sign off. I just saw Shannon joined.
Oh,
and
Shannon, you should leave. Yeah.
We're not gonna hear any OHIO calls anytime soon because Roll Tide put it on last night.
You are so disrespectful.
I'm sorry,
Shannon. He's disrespectful, and he's you know what he is? He's like the annoying bandwagon Alabama fans.
Bandwagon? I'm a Tennessee fan. I just always support SEC.
I mean, no. You acting like them right now. I cannot.
You know what? It's time to go.
It sure is. It's been real, guys.
Thank you for joining us. Season 2, Truth Hour. You can see us. We're going to cut off that half hour. We used to go 4:30 to 5:30 Pacific, 7:30 to 8:30. Now it's going to be 4 to 5 Pacific, 7 to 8 Eastern. We look forward to reading your comments and have you join in the conversation. And next week we will, since it'll be right before the inaugural, we'll look at Biden's cabinet since the cabinet is now completed and some other stories. All right.
Ooh, they going in on you.
Wow, that's how you feel? Okay. Tennessee volunteers till I die.
I told him. Okay. Well, we'll see you guys next week.